have you in the last whatever year or year and a half or whatever changed your opinion of the media and how it covers politics in particular?
Oh, yes. I think it's been very depressing because I feel like a lot of these people don't have a passion for it. I don't think they show up, and because I'm watching, say I'm at an event where Trump is handing out pizza to 30 people. I mean, I see him work this crowd and they're all in love with him and he's so good with people. I'm watching these other journalists and they'll go and write these terrible things. And I'm like, we were all in that room together. You witnessed what I witnessed. And that's not the way journalism was. I mean, look at Vogue and Rolling Stones. Those used to be very edgy publications where people like, Joan Didion started and all of these incredible rebellious writers. And now it's like all the articles are the same.
All right, guys, what a week. I feel like it is February, so we've gotten through 16 days of the Trump administration, which feels like 4 years of the Biden administration. And that probably is insulting the President Trump, because he probably did do more in these last 16, 17 days than Biden did in 4 years. I mean, think about the week that we've had, and frankly, the week that we're about to have. Next week, these foreign leaders are coming, and I mean, he's really going to show whether or not his negotiating style with respect to Gaza takes place. We've exposed so much about what's going on in the media, government waste with all the DEI stuff. I mean, and obviously the tariffs we have a reprieve, but a lot going on there. The DEI stuff, as I said to the panel yesterday, makes you wonder what else is out there. The government has been disrespecting our tax dollars and wasting it for so long. To silently look under the hood and pull things apart is what we've been needing for a long time. We've got to stop this mentality. It's only, as what Margaret Brennan, CBS said, it's like, it's only a few billion, whatever. I mean, this is ridiculous. But today, folks, I'm going to have a conversation that you are not going to see anywhere else. I've been in politics for 30 years. I don't look it, I know. If you had told me that me, would be supporting RFK, a Kennedy, a Massachusetts Democrat, for HHS Secretary, and Tulsi Gabbard for the Director of National Intelligence, two long-time Democrats who are now at the center of the MAGA and MAHA movement, I would have laughed at you. It is so unique how this is happening. It's not your normal construct. It is not the local Republican parties and the Chamber of Commerce and some business interest getting behind, or even a union. This movement is being driven primarily by women. Strong, powerful, independent women that want change, want transparency. Most of them haven't been involved in politics. You think of the big names, not just so many of these women on the ground that I have met who are tweeting, pushing, calling. I mean, when this number goes out to support, they're calling their senators or whatever. But you think about former ESPN host Sage Steele, Danica Patrick, she was a NASCAR driver, Meghan McCain, who's obviously in politics, but, she's come up very forceful. And my guest today, her name is Jessica Reed Kraus. She is the viral force behind the newsletter House and Habit. She posts on Instagram, whatever. She made a living covering celebrity. She didn't make a living. She got popular covering celebrity trials and some pop culture stuff in Hollywood. And then transformed and started covering Bobby Kennedy and Donald Trump, earned their trust and covered them in a way that nobody else would. Raw, open, honest, showing us a side of them that we would never see. It is amazing. And I'm going to explain to you, because to me, as someone who loves politics, I've never seen anything like this before. I want to understand it more. And like I said, you won't see this conversation anywhere else. To go in depth to understand it, and it'll give you a better understanding of what we are, where this movement is. So sit back, get ready, and enjoy a conversation that I think you are going to thoroughly enjoy with Jessica Reed Kraus, of the author behind House and Habit. Before I do that, I want to tell you about two of our great sponsors, because we talk about hard work, and Jessica is the example of hard work. Doing something, fighting for it, and getting it. that's how America was built. But let's face it, it's not easy. And sometimes for people like me who have bad knees and bad hips, you need a little support. That's why I wear Gravity Defier shoes. They help hardworking Americans, whether you're on your feet all day, whether you're just working out at the gym, whether you go running. This is a shoe that works as hard as you do. And I've posted on my social media before, whether it's going out and playing pickleball, working out at the gym, or even trying to go for a run. These shoes are total game changers. They've got a thing called Verso technology, which is like the same stuff they make trampolines out of. When you put these things on, you will never wear another shoe again. Trust me, they've got that much support and cushioning. I love this stuff. And the best part of it is right now, listeners and viewers of the Sean Spicer Show can get an exclusive 50% off any order of $120 or more. Just text Sean, S-E-A-N, the right way, the Irish way, Sean, S-E-A-N, to 91888. So 91888 SEAN to claim that deal. It's half off the shoes that will transform your life. I'm telling you, when you do this, and that's why I have 3 pairs, because I want one for every sector. I don't think you need to go that nuts. That's just how I am. I'm a bit of an impulse buyer. So text Sean to 91888 or visit Gravity, GDEFY, gravitydefier.com, GDEFY, to take the first step towards a pain-free life. All right. Speaking of a pain-free life, if you want to prioritize your gut health, which is at the core of everything that we do. When I had Tina Anderson from Just Thrive on the last couple times, we talk about this. If you're making wellness part of your 2025 resolutions, the key to it all is your gut health. That's your mood, your hair, everything stems from a healthy gut. Bloating, and it all comes out. And if you're going to take a probiotic, which is what I've been doing, then you need to take one that actually works, that can get through your stomach and arrive in your gut 100% alive. They are the only probiotic clinically proven to do that. It means better digestion, healthy immunity, better energy, easier weight management, all these things. This is why I trust the folks at Just Thrive. I take one of their probiotics every day. I've got the gummies, I've got the regular ones. It doesn't matter. It's all backed by 100% money back guaranteed. This is why they're a leader in the industry. You love the way you feel by doing this. So if you go to justthrivehealth.com, use code SPICER for 20% off your first 90-day vial. Justthrivehealth.com, use code SPICER. I'm telling you, whether you like gummies or the regular stuff, they've got a ton of great products. I love the probiotic, but they got the Just Calm, so many other cool things for you to feel healthier. Truck it out now. Go to justthrivehealth.com. Okay, without further ado, I want to welcome in the powerhouse behind the House and Habit newsletter. Its founder and a trusted source now for so many people in the realm of politics, Jessica Reed Kraus. Jessica, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let me ask you this. I think for a lot of, let's just take it back. Give me a sense of your background. Like a year ago, what were you doing, or maybe 2 years ago? Because where we are today is not probably where you were 2 years ago.
That is safe to say. Yes, I was doing pop culture things 2 years ago, but it was primarily focused on, Hollywood scandals and some trials. I did some high profile trials, which I liked. That was kind of the first, kind of hardcore reporting. But the political pivot was definitely a shift. And I don't think that everybody anticipated I would end up here. And now I love it.
Okay, so let's stick with that for a second. When you, graduated from college or something, were you like, hey, I want to go into journalism, I like pop culture, I like Hollywood? Like, what would you have said professionally you were 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, graduating college, I always loved literature. I studied, American lit, and I was going to be a high school English teacher, which could have been amazing, but I ended up having a bunch of kids back to back. And so I wanted to stay home with them. And I kind of put that on the back burner, thinking I would come back to it when they were older. And so everything that happened from that point on is totally unexpected. I didn't see myself as a journalist. And so, I was in love with like fiction writing and stuff and classic literature. So I feel like what's come of what I do now is kind of like melding all of that,
Right. So you start like liking, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, how did this all start? You're raising kids, the kids start to grow up, and what you said, I really like writing, I want to do something. And the internet now allows me to do it, and I'm going to
Right.
like launch something. Like, what was that first spark?
Well, so that's the beauty of the internet. When I had the kids, I was a stay-at-home mom, but I still missed writing. I loved writing, so blogging was new then, and it was, a very sort of wholesome endeavor. We didn't know there was money to be made, so it was just a bunch of us. That's where the term "mommy blogger" comes from. They keep referring to me as I was that. I was writing about life, raising, 4 boys and the wild chaos of that, and it was popular. I had a small, loyal following, a liberal loyal following.
Okay.
And for many years, I just tracked, my kids growing up. And so that evolved gradually into pop culture, trials, because as your kids get older, they don't want you to like spill everything on the internet about their every milestone, like your teenagers.
I've always wondered that when I see some of these people, like my dance partner in Dancing with the Stars, Lindsay Arnold, she really has been killing it on social media, talking about some of the stuff that she's done. And I do wonder, at that point where your kids go from toddler to they can actually maybe see stuff, do they start to go, hey mom, like, I don't need you telling everyone that I got an F on my geometry test?
Yeah, because I feel like, the story becomes, it's like they own their story at a certain point. So when they're young and
okay, so what was the transition? When did you say like, hey, I want to write about someone in Hollywood or a trial?
Okay, so the transition would have been Britney Spears. That was a really popular deep dive, and I ended up in her trial, and I didn't know that the public was even allowed in a trial. So randomly, I ended up in the trial when she made that phone call. She had like 20 minutes to prove her case, and it was heartbreaking to hear her. And so from that point on, I was like, I feel like I need to be in these trials because it makes all the difference. And so from there, I went to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, and that's kind of what set things off, because it was during COVID. So there was only maybe 4 to 5 people from the public who were reporting on it. And I was one of them. Every morning I'd get in line at 4 a.m, stand in the freezing cold for 5 hours to get into that trial. And so my following really grew with that. And then right after that, it was Johnny Depp. So it was just like these back-to-back trials that people were really captivated by, I guess.
So you're raising 4 boys. And you say to your husband one day, hey, I need to get out of here really early because at 4 a.m, I need to get in line for a trial. How did that go? I mean, he's like, hey, you've been super mom. Like now you're leaving at 4 a.m. to go to a trial.
Well, I mean, Mike had a big part in that because we were not in a place that made sense where I would get up and fly to New York to like wait in line to track Ghislaine Maxwell. But he was, from the beginning, one of my biggest supporters. He was like, I remember talking to him and I'm like, nobody's really covering this the way I would prefer. And I said, it doesn't seem like there's even a lot of media. And I remember, we were out in the backyard having this conversation. He's like, you should just fly there. You should do it. And at the time it was crazy. I was terrified of flying. We didn't have a lot of money. So it was like, and it was Christmas. It was December. And so Mike was really encouraging from the start. And I flew back and forth and I raised public donation for that. I put up one post and I said, if you want to help, fund this endeavor. And I couldn't believe the money that came in and the support that came in. So I flew back and forth that whole month to be, at a recital and then at Ghislaine Maxwell's trial and then at a Christmas party and then for, the verdict. It was crazy, but I don't think I'd ever do it again. It was very intense. But it defined a whole new chapter.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt this conversation with Jessica. It's going amazing. But if you have a first aid kit or a fire extinguisher in your house, you do for a reason, because you want to be ready for the event of an emergency. That's why I have a life vac in my house, because I want to be ready in the case of a choking incident. Think about it. Anyone can be a hero with a life vac. The company called me a couple of weeks ago and told me that someone, I don't know if it was a listener or viewer, they didn't know that, said had ordered one of the life vacs. They had a choking incident and they were able to save the life. There is a person alive today who watches this show because of a life vac. That's what I'm talking about. It is that powerful, that important. There's a reason that police officers, fire departments, EMTs, restaurants, cruise lines, all of these people, schools have a life vac because it can make anyone a hero in the event of a choking incident. It literally will save a life. Get your very own life vac by going to lifevac.net, lifevac.net. Don't wait another minute. Go to lifevac.net. All right, back to the conversation with Jessica. Okay, so let's keep going. So you do this chapter, and from what I understand, you really start this theory that you have pays off because people start loving your content and your angle and your insights. Is that right?
I think so, because, I would report on what everyone in court was wearing. And, the fact that something so ridiculous as like what Ghislaine Maxwell as a defendant was wearing, how she cut her hair. And so I just kind of picked up on the details outside of the whole scandal and the salacious details of the trial. It was like fashion updates. And the Maxwell family in itself is fascinating. So they were compelling characters. And then I really loved trial coverage. And because Maxwell came back to back with Depp, it was just like, the perfect storm. And Depp was like nonstop.
And Johnny Depp picked up on your coverage, right?
Yeah, he realized I jumped on Johnny Depp, I jumped on the story right away. Nobody was really paying attention yet. And I spent about 4 days going through his entire case. And I had always believed he was the abuser and that Amber Heard was the victim. So I sat down, I went through his court, and I jumped on it right away. And he noticed that someone with a valuable audience was willing to look at it from another angle. This was before we knew what the public was going to do with it. And so he saw, just a few slides, a few days of my coverage, basically asking the public to just reconsider what they know about the case and to be open-minded in tracking it. And that meant a lot to him. That's why he reached out.
At this point, did you start to say, I've read and seen how media has covered trials and things for a long time, my life, and wow, like now I'm in the courtroom and what I read and see a lot is not what I experience now for myself?
I think it was probably the craziest, it was sort of like a grand awakening as being in that trial. The Maxwell trial was a big deal as far as me realizing that, I would sit in there as a citizen, but behind me was, all of the mainstream media, and they did not report. We would be together at the lunch tables in the cafeteria. We shared opinions, but none of them were translated into these articles. So it was the first time I realized that all of these people sitting in here are not actually publishing what they witness or what they believe. They are following an agenda carved out for them.
Interesting. So
it was crazy.
We go from Johnny Depp and let's keep going. So where does that take you then?
Well, Johnny Depp was crazy. I mean, Johnny Depp was sort of an anomaly. Like every single type of person cared about that story. Like I'd go to coffee in town. I'd go to the market. I mean, plumbers, doctors, every type of person cared about, they had, interest, investment in this case. So that was what was really cool about that, is it kind of drew everyone in. They all had their opinion. They all wanted to talk about it. And I think that's the first time I was able to do sort of this viral coverage where it was like incessant. I'd wake up at 6 a.m., track the whole trial all day long. We do recap, and people couldn't get enough. Like I'd go to bed and have 60,000 followers the next day. It was like insane. And so as much as I could put out is what, people would consume. And I reached, I think like there's a point where I was like almost at 500,000 views per story slide with 100 story slides. So it was insane statistically.
That's pretty,
because
okay.
None of the networks, came close to that at that point.
Well, you think about that, 500 views. That's more than a normal CNN show gets. I mean, at some point,
unreal.
Right. So, okay. So let's keep going. So Johnny Depp's over, and then what happens?
So Johnny Depp, I didn't make any money during that whole stretch. I was literally I was working as much as I possibly could for those, I think it was 6 weeks. And I flew to Virginia a couple times to be there. But really, it was a deciding point in our personal life, because I thought I can't actually drive the kids to school. I can't do carpool and track the trial. And so when we saw how popular the coverage with Depp was, that was when Mike and I had a conversation, and he's like, I think maybe I should take a year off and let you do this, because he thought I was good at it, and he was proud of how things were progressing. So he quit his job, and that enabled you can't have four kids and both of you be gone.
Just FYI, I don't know that you can do it with one or two, never mind four.
It's like not a good idea. So that was the sort of, it changed our roles, because for our entire marriage I was a stay-at-home mom and he provided for the family. So for the first time, he was the one picking kids up and doing the grocery shopping. And that was, it's been a couple years now. And we, it's a big adjustment, but
that's awesome. So how does this go? How does this now? I mean, so let's get into, how does this translate? You've got this huge following. People are loving your content. And then when do you start talking about issues that are of a political nature, or that deviates a little from the trial and pop culture coverage?
So I will admit that was a very strategic pivot. Like, I knew, I was dealing with my own sort of ideas about politics. I had always identified as a Democrat, and that was part of my identity. And that was what I built my audience on. I wasn't overtly political, but I did, people understood where I was politically. So when I was, during COVID, I had, like a lot of people, I started to change my mind on a lot of things, and Donald Trump was one of them. And so I knew that if I was going, because here's the thing online, like, I chase what I find interesting. So when I was over Hollywood, I was over Hollywood. And I woke up one day and I'm like, I want to do politics. I knew Robert Kennedy was running. I knew Trump was running. And those are two dynamic characters that I was familiar with. And so I thought, how am I going to get my audience? How am I going to drag a pop culture liberal audience into politics? And at the time I thought, like, it was perfect. I was following a Democrat. Kennedy was a Democrat. Trump was the Republican. I thought we could go into this with the same things that worked for pop culture, which was like gossip and fashion and sort of all these, footnotes. And I mean, I lost a lot of followers in the beginning. The first time I had never featured Donald Trump up until that photo I posted of my son in the t-shirt. And that one photo cost me like 32,000 followers overnight. It was. But
you weren't, I mean, at least for the coverage that I read, it wasn't like, I support this or this. You were covering it. You were like, here's what happened.
Yeah. And I said, my point was, when are we going to be able to talk openly about politics again without berating each other the way it used to be? Like the way, we grew up, our parents, I remember we'd kind of like make fun of each other if you were, you'd be at coffee, and that was the fun in it. So I grew up in the 90s and I loved watching all those shows where they would debate. Sometimes we'd have Rush Limbaugh on radio, and sometimes, my mom loved CNN. So I really held everyone's hand. I was like, we're going to slowly work into this. But I'm saying I would do things strategically to kind of shed these followers who are easily offended, so that we could get to a point of middle ground and have sort of a moderate take on politics. And I mean, it worked. It was a lot of work, and I had to deal with a lot of haters and vicious personal attacks. But in the end, I was shocked that the formula was working.
And when you started to cover them, was it like, I'm going to go on the campaign trail with them, or I'm going to do it from afar?
No, I just thought, I had no expectations. That's kind of the fun of it. I just thought, I will start tracking it the way I do Hollywood. So we're going to be funny, and we're not going to be overly guarded or politically correct in this. And I didn't realize at the time, but that's what people were craving. And I also thought, like, I have this audience of 90% women who are not totally represented in the political sphere. Like, they don't really watch these 3-hour long podcasts with the bro podcast. So, we started to have fun, and I would kind of back off when I needed to. I knew, like, to go slow. It was not like an aggressive thing. I kept it sort of light, and then I would ease into some of the policies and stuff. But I think, the key is sort of humanizing all of these characters. Like, for the first time, people who thought they hated, someone like Trump or Kennedy, they're seeing them in a totally different light, because it's a different, more, personal angle.
I don't mean to be personal, but so your husband buys into this, loves what you're doing, you're growing it. Does he at some point say, hey, Jessica, what are we doing here? Like, we're now getting haters. Like, I love the Hollywood, the Johnny Depp stuff, or is he on board on all this?
Well, that's what's funny is because Mike was more conservative than me. He kind of abandoned the Democrats before me. And that had caused a big issue in our marriage. We were fighting for the first time over it because I felt totally betrayed. I'm like, I married you as a Democrat. We both loved Obama. Like, who are you? And so we fought about it. And then all of a sudden I was losing every argument, and any wife hates to lose an argument. It's like unacceptable. I'm like, this cannot continue. So I'm like, I have to get informed so I can beat him at these arguments. But when I got informed, I realized that I agreed with him on a lot of things. So what's funny is he started out more conservative, but then when I dived in, he was just like, whoa, like this a little too much, like reel it in.
He's like, I didn't think you'd go this far.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know if you should it's like sort of, it's a little too much. So it's been funny.
So you start getting access. I'm reading the newsletter, and it's like you're posting behind the scenes photos at like the Kennedy compound, Mar-a-Lago. How do you come on the radar? I mean, I've been in this business as a staffer for 30 years, right? Well, I guess not the last several, but the idea of one of my team calling me, hey, I got this great idea. I want to let this woman have complete, or man, it doesn't even matter, have complete and utter access to our life we always got requests for the day in the life. And I'd be like, how about this? You get 20 minutes. Cause I don't want them seeing the dude, and I'm like reading this stuff and I'm thinking to myself, holy smokes. Like, most people would kill for like 20 minutes, an hour with RFK Jr. And you're literally like hanging out at the Kennedy compound in Hyannis.
I mean, I don't really know how to explain it because it's not like I set out, it all happened so organically, but it really was Bobby Kennedy who opened up that opportunity. He's sort of, he had no good press at all. And so the few features I did of him in the beginning were very popular. And because I have such a loyal female audience, I had connections all through the campaign, or whoever was hosting an event, they were following me and they wanted me there. So it was, for the most part, it started out like he didn't even really know who I was. He just knew I was everywhere that he was because somebody wanted me there. And then he would, he liked the coverage and he liked the photos and he felt like I was very fair. So it became sort of a standing invitation to just be at any of his events. And I guess there was, some sort of, I feel like there is a trust there that I'm not out to get anybody. I feel like I'm going to report fairly, honestly, but for the most part, I feel like I would be in these situations and find the best qualities in the whole setting. So,
but it's not, I mean, look, there are reporters that I think I can trust, but you've gotten access that people like sit and pray about or dream about and say, if I could only get behind the scenes. And I just think that's a level of trust that most people, never mind most public figures, are willing to give somebody.
I mean, I still can't believe that it still feels very surreal to me because years ago, this was my vision and my dream where I thought PR needed to evolve. I think people are really done with overly produced, scripted presentations of politicians or even Hollywood stars. So when Bobby Kennedy opened up access, I was able to show my version of what I think people relate to. And so I think there was mutual trust. And I think they saw how many, he would go to his appearances and he couldn't believe how many women would say they're there because I encouraged or promoted an event. I think making people excited about politics in general again was important, like let's make it fun. And so, I mean, I can't believe it. It's been every day. I don't take any of it for granted.
And what about the Trump side? Because again, I'm going to put my operative hat back on. Someone comes to me and says, Sean, we're reading this amazing coverage in House and Habit. We know this woman. She goes to everything. She's really fair. She's done some great work with Bobby Kennedy. And I'd go, so you got to be kidding me. You want me to take somebody who's covered Bobby Kennedy running as a Democrat and let you bring her into Mar-a-Lago and get some unbelievable insight? I would have literally probably fired the staffer who suggested that. But yet here you are going into Mar-a-Lago, what was it, Super Bowl, New Year's, who knows, getting access that, like, as a senior staffer to Donald Trump, I kind of had. And again, wonderful job. But you keep taking this level of trust to a new level. And how does the Trump thing come to be?
So the Trump thing was a little rockier. I got invited by somebody throwing, I think it was the Heroes Dinner, for the veterans. It was an amazing event. And the staffers at Mar-a-Lago caught wind that I would be there, and they did not trust me. So, there was a call that went out and said, or maybe it was for the Trumpettes dinner, but they said, like, do not let her in. She is a liberal in disguise, and she's going to make a mockery of you. So they called Tony, what's her name? The trumpet.
Yeah. I know who
Tony,
you're talking about.
The queen of the trumpets. And so they warned her, and they said, do not let this woman in. And she's like, so she called me and she said, the fact that somebody is warning me about you makes me like you more. And so now I can't wait to have you here. And so they were watching me. I was like guarded. Like, I went up to the stage to, I think, photograph Laura Trump's amazing legs. And they all like rushed to make sure, I wasn't doing anything crazy. So I was, not trusted in the beginning, but all of those women on Trump's team were following me too. So I had both sides, and they had enjoyed the coverage of Robert Kennedy. A lot of them were only watching Robert Kennedy through me. So that's what put me in a really good spot, is I kind of bounced between the two once I gained the trust of Trump, and I made, everybody couldn't get enough of Mar-a-Lago. Inside Mar-a-Lago, they had never really seen it that way before. So I think they realized quickly the impact it was having. And so that just opened up too. But I just bounced between the two campaigns. I think the first time I told Bobby that I was going to Trump, he's like, what are you doing with Trump? Like, what? Why are you going there? And I'm like, I think I'm going to cover both you guys. Like,
what was that? What did you think the first time you met Trump in person?
I couldn't believe how tall he is. I didn't know he was that tall. And, well, it was like this great cinematic moment. I had a couple glasses of champagne, and they like whisked me up to the terrace. I didn't even know where I was at. And Phantom of the Opera was blaring on the stereo. And this is before anyone knew who controlled the music.
So he was the DJ.
And they're like, you know who's controlling the music, right? And like Sinead O'Connor came on, and I'm like, no. And they're like, look behind you. So I look behind me, and Trump's there with his iPad. Just right behind me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I just fell in love. I mean, it was the best moment. And he would wait till the song, finished, and then a new dramatic sound on.
So the thing that's interesting to me about this moment in time right now, my entire adult life, I've been a Republican and a conservative. And, I pretty much fall in line just to be, here's the team. This is what we're doing. Obviously, the last 10 years have been a little different. But Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi, if you had told Sean Spicer 2 years ago, you're going to be tweeting support for Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard to be in Trump's campaign, Trump's cabinet, I would have said, you're absolutely insane. And yet here we are at a point where these two recently former Democrats are taking very senior and important positions in Donald Trump's cabinet. And I just find the dynamic so interesting and different than in the past. What you came to Washington to watch these hearings as an outsider to the swamp of Washington. What did you think?
Well, all of this is a new world to me, but I had the unique experience of getting to know both, Bobby and Tulsi as outside of politics, really. I met, Bobby on a hike at his house, and then I met Tulsi for the first time in her hometown in Hawaii. She offered to show us around her hometown. And the first time I saw her, she was getting out of the water after surfing with her husband. So we didn't even talk politics. Okay. We went and got smoothies. And
this is as a staffer in me, I'm getting anxious. I'm like, oh, just go meet her down at the beach when she comes out of the water with her husband. I'd be like, What? No. We need
Sean,
to script
her original plan was to take us on this hike, like one of her favorite hikes. So I was like, I don't really like hiking. I don't know why everybody wants to go hiking. So I looked up, I Googled, the hike, and it's like, this person's like, oh, I broke my leg on it. Like, oh, I, fell down and fractured my nose. I'm like, Tulsi, I'm not going hiking with you. And she's like, let's go surfing instead. But no, I just, so I got to know, the reason I showed up for their hearings is because to be there in support for, like someone like Tulsi, I know that I've seen her in every situation where she is the exact same person. There isn't like a different side of Tulsi when she's in Hawaii talking to random people at a restaurant. What she presents in that hearing, like that is who she is. And so my whole thing is to show that that's the person, that I know and respect. And that I think she's one of the most authentic people I've ever met. And I would, I was so honored to be there to watch her navigate that whole.
But what did you think? What did you think of the process? I mean, like in terms of these random senators who most of America will never know, going at them like spider monkeys, like, you said this, you said that. Were you like, as an outsider, like, is this really your role? Or did you say, I expected this kind of crap from Washington? I mean, first impressions when you saw it, were you disgusted by it? Were you shocked by it?
I want to say I was amused by it. Like I've never been a sports person. So
a what person?
I've never been a sports person. Like I've never felt like, oh, I need my team, like I'm rooting for my guy. And for this, it was so absurd. I was like, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, like I felt like I had front row seats to like the greatest political theater of all time. We were laughing, and then sometimes we were enraged. We wanted to, Meghan McCain sitting in front of me at Tulsi's hearing when they were attacking Tulsi, like Meghan has a hot temper. She was ready to it was so entertaining, but I also feel like it was ridiculous. I'm glad I was there to witness it. I feel like it's not what I expected.
Do you think that most people, like, I watch it and maybe I'm a little numb to it, but I'm like, if you want to, like, the Constitution says advice and consent. And to your thing, I think that they beclown themselves. They're like, Mr. Kennedy, you said this. And I'm like, okay, dude, like that's not a serious impersonation. I got that one down. But I don't think it's serious. And that's fine. If you want to make a mockery and you want to score political points because you're going to get a clip, I get it. But I just thought to myself, if you're someone who's tuning into politics, you're not sending us your best and brightest right now.
Like I said, I felt like it was embarrassing to see. They're screaming. In what scenario do adults need to yell at each other like that? I just didn't. It's like it was like, meme ready. Like everybody was like designed to be a meme in those hearings. It was out of control.
So, as I was saying, the previous Republican coalition is, Congress, so-and-so is going to be nominated for, like last time it was Tom Price. He was the former congressman from Georgia. And so we get the coalition behind him, the Chamber of Commerce and whatever. What I have found politically fascinating about what's happening now is it's Jessica Reed Kraus, Meghan McCain, as you mentioned, Danica Patrick, Marla Maples, Sage Steele, the former ESPN host. I'm watching this, and this is like, if this was a trivia question, it's name 5 people you would not see at a Republican meeting. But it's strong, independent women who have a brand of their own. It's not like you're on behalf of the Independent Women Forum of whatever. I write a newsletter. I have it. Meghan McCain has her podcast and a brand that she goes out there. Danica Patrick out there. Sage Steele. Like, these women are creating a new forceful dynamic that I've never seen on either side, but definitely not on the Republican side.
Well, that's why I think it's the most exciting timeline right now. Like, I can't believe how everything's come together, and especially everything you just mentioned, and as far as these women, because I would have never put myself in this category. Sage Steele did sports, and like Meghan McCain. I feel like I had nothing in common with those people up to this point. And we still disagree on a lot of things, and we have very different interests and styles. So it's amazing to see how supportive they all are. We are in a very, tight-knit group, and we don't have to agree on everything. Even Tulsi and Megan, they don't agree on everything, but they are incredible. They have an incredible friendship.
So that begs the question that I think piques my interest, which is, let's just say hypothetically, there's another nominee. Like, what would it take? What does it take to get you guys back in the fight? Is it that you need to know them, that they need to champion some issues? Like, that's why I'm fascinated by Tulsi and RFK, right? They're outsiders, they're disruptors. But if Trump nominates someone to be the secretary of fill in the blank, are you getting behind them? Is this coalition of strong, powerful women getting behind them? Or what's that criteria that says, okay, guys, let's go back and bring the team together?
So I think that's a really good question, because that's something I've actually been thinking about. I don't think I could get behind just any candidate running. There are very few politicians that I would be willing to travel the country for. And it just so happened that Bobby and Tulsi were the two that welcomed me. And so the fact that they all united and became this sort of coalition, again, is a dream come true for me as a writer. But I don't see myself just jumping on board with, like, honestly, really anyone. If Tulsi decided to run for president, I have already stated that I would drop everything to track her campaign, because, I feel passionately about.
Would you work for her?
I don't want to work for any politician. No, I think that's the whole. I think, I'm able to say right now that I'm independent. I don't take any money from PACs. I refuse any payment. It was always just access. Like, with Kennedy, it was like, I don't want anything. Just make sure that I'm allowed to be. So
none of these guys, it's all subscription, right? I mean, none of these guys say, hey, we're going to send you to Mar-a-Lago and here's your ticket.
Never.
That's the beauty of, the
funny
part about
let me in for free. They'll let me into the events for free.
Right. But that's different.
No,
but I laugh because I remember Bobby and Bernie Sanders sparring about who takes so much money. And here you are, actually probably the purest of everyone there. Like, I haven't taken anybody's money.
I feel like that's how I feel. I feel like this is the purest form of journalism. I offer a service to the public. Most of my newsletter is free, by the way, like 90% is free, because I do want people to be able to read. I want it accessible to everyone. But so the donation, it's really a donation. Like, if you want to support media, which I think is crucial right now, look at what's happening right now. Like, there's a big difference between someone like me who's paid by the public and my readers, as opposed to someone like Politico who's paid by God knows what. Like, these networks, my whole thing was that there needs to be a cleaner form of journalism where I think the people who love.
Do you think you're a journalist? Would you call yourself that?
I feel like I'm more like a storyteller, because I like the visuals, and I like, I don't think I follow all the, traditional journalistic roles, but I think things are changing so much, and I don't feel like the classic journalists are doing a good job anyway. So I feel like it's open to.
The thing that I find fascinating, Jessica, is when people get into this like you, and because of my background, they'll say, Sean, I didn't realize how biased these guys are, or the agenda, or how lazy they are. I just, have you in the last year or year and a half or whatever changed your opinion of the media and how it covers politics in particular?
Oh, yes. I think it's been very depressing, because I feel like a lot of these people don't have a passion for it. I don't think they show up, and because I'm watching, say I'm at an event where Trump is handing out pizza to 30 people. I see him I see him work this crowd, and they're all in love with him, and he's so good with people, not just in a rally. We've seen him in his rallies, but in a small room, I'm watching these other journalists, and they'll go and write these terrible things. And I'm like, we were all in that room together. You witnessed what I witnessed. So I'm taking in all of the perspective, is not just tracking the whole environment. And it's like, I think it's lazy. And I think they've just been allowed to get away with, what it's just very predictable. And that's not the way journalism was. Look at Vogue and Rolling Stones. Those used to be very edgy publications where people like, Joan Didion started, and all of these incredible rebellious writers. And now it's like it's all the articles are the same. All the headlines are the same.
One of the things that I feel blessed when Donald Trump named me White House press secretary is, I say this kind of half joking, but it's true. Like, I grew up as a very simple kid in Rhode Island, at best middle class, two great parents who worked really hard to give their kids, as much as they could at times. And so when I would open the door of the Oval Office, and I mean, the people and the experiences I've had since the White House just blow my mind, right? I mean, I've met people, I've gotten to do things that 30-year-old Sean would have never dreamed. I was like, there's no way I could ever do that. There's just so much coolness that has come. And I think of the people that you're hanging out with now. And if 10 years ago, Jessica could pinch her, look back and say, who have I met or what have I done that's just mind blowing? What would come to mind?
I mean, there's been me sitting here with you I think I probably knew on TV. I don't know what
raise the bar. You need to raise the bar.
Well, I'm saying I was probably cursing you how many years ago when you were on. I don't even want to know what I said about you. But
you definitely didn't vote for me on Dancing with the Stars, did you?
Definitely not. I probably voted against you. We're probably tuned in to vote against you. No, hello. I woke up at the Kennedy compound. I opened my window, and I saw the steam rising off and like the flagpole that is, at. That's and iconic. Like that is like, I can't be alive right now. This is not real. And so and then 2 weeks later, I'm in, the terrace of Mar-a-Lago. And it's like, for someone like me, they like to frame this story as like an overnight, sensation. But I grew up reading about these people my entire life. So
you earned it.
I did. I do feel like that. I feel like when I woke up, it was surreal, but also I was like, I'm supposed to be here. I have put in the time and effort. I've gotten to know these stories and I care about them more than probably anyone I know. So it's like I said, I'm so grateful for how everything happened and it feels very genuine and I feel very good about how I make money and connections.
Good. I mean, you've earned everything and I think the content is great. Your writing style is phenomenal. I love the perspective you bring. Just remind people where they can get you and support this.
So I do curated news every day on Instagram under House and Habit. And then the newsletter is a long form, tracking of all of these. But
if people want to subscribe and see this, they go to houseandhabit.com. Is that?
I would do Substack House and Habit newsletter just because that is where I make a living. The subscriptions.
Well, let's help you make a living. Jessica Reed Kraus, I love it. Thank you for spending your time with us and explaining this. It's such a great
Thank you for having
success story in America. You bet. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye, Sean.
Guys, thanks for this. This is what a great way to end the week. We're going to continue to break down everything going on in this Trump White House, all of the visits, the executive orders next week. We've got a lot to do. Some great guests headed your way to give us some continued insight that you'll get nowhere else. My newsletter dropped today, SeanSpicer.com. It's free to subscribe. Get mine and Jessica's at House and Habit. But go to SeanSpicer.com. I always appreciate the VIP ones. But SeanSpicer.com is where you get all the insight. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.